Lieutenant Commander Jace Sullivan pressed his palm against the viewport of the research vessel Meridian, watching the alien debris field drift past in the endless black. 3 weeks into their deep space survey mission, and this was the first sign of non-human technology they'd encountered. The twisted metal fragments caught the light of distant stars, creating an eerie ballet of shadows and gleaming surfaces. "Commander," called Ensign Torres from the sensor station, "I'm picking up a faint energy signature from one of the larger pieces. It's organic somehow." Jace moved to the tactical display, studying the readouts. Among the scattered wreckage, one pod-shaped object pulsed with a soft, rhythmic glow. "Life signs? Uncertain, sir. The biopatterns don't match anything in our database, but there's definitely something alive in there." The protocol was clear. Any discovery of alien life required immediate contact with Fleet Command. But the nearest communication relay was 6 days away, and the energy signature was weakening. Whatever was inside that pod wouldn't survive. "Weak. Bring it aboard," Jace ordered. "Cargo Bay 2. Full containment protocols." An hour later, Jace stood before the recovered pod in the sterile environment of the cargo bay. The object was larger than he'd expected, roughly humanoid in shape, but composed of what appeared to be living crystal. Hexagonal patterns covered its surface, shifting from deep blue to violet to silver in mesmerizing waves. "The crystal structure is unlike anything we've seen," reported Chief Science Officer Kim. "It's simultaneously organic and mineral, and Commander ... It's responding to our presence." As if triggered by her words, the pod's surface began to crack along precise geometric lines. Light spilled out, not harsh but warm, like sunlight through stained glass. Jace instinctively stepped forward, ignoring Kim's warning gesture. The pod split open like a flower, revealing its occupant. She was breathtaking in an utterly alien way. Her skin appeared to be living crystal, translucent, and multifaceted, refracting the cargo bay's lights into rainbow patterns across the walls. She stood roughly human height, with elongated limbs and features that were beautiful yet distinctly non-human. Where hair should be, crystalline formations grew from her scalp, chiming softly as she moved. Her eyes were the most startling feature deep, wells of swirling galaxies, as if she contained entire star systems within her gaze. She stumbled, and Jace caught her before she could fall. The moment their skin made contact, his vision exploded with color and sensation. Images flooded his mind, a world of crystal spires reaching toward twin suns, beings of living light dancing through prismatic canyons, and an overwhelming sense of loneliness and loss. When the vision ended, she was staring at him with those impossible eyes. Her lips moved, but instead of sound, patterns of light cascaded across her crystalline skin. The bioluminescent display was clearly language, but unlike anything in their translation databases. "Am I not beautiful by human standards?" The words formed in his mind rather than his ears, her thoughts somehow transmitting directly to his. "Consciousness. I have studied your species through intercepted transmissions. I learned your concept of aesthetic appreciation." Jace found his voice, though his throat felt dry. "You single quotes extraordinary, but how are you speaking to me?" More light patterns flowed across her skin, and he sensed amusement in her mental voice. "My people, the Praxini, communicate through bioluminescent resonance and tactile consciousness. Sharing. Physical contact allows deeper understanding between minds." She stepped back, swaying slightly, and Jace noticed the dimming of her internal light. "You're injured." "My ship was attacked by the Devourer's beings of pure entropy, who consume organized energy. I am Nixara, last daughter of the Praxan High Crystals. My pod's life support is failing, and I am far from the quantum resonance fields of my homeworld. What do you need to survive?" Her crystalline features shifted in what might have been a smile. Among my people, life energy can be shared through conscious connection. But I do not know if human bioenergy is compatible with Praxini physiology. Jace extended his hand. There's only one way to find out. When their palms touched again, the sensation was electric. He felt her gratitude flow through the connection, along with something deeper, a profound loneliness that echoed his own. As a deep space commander, he'd spent years isolated among the stars, duty-bound and emotionally distant from his crew. In Nixara, he sensed a kindred spirit, equally alone despite being surrounded by others. The crystalline patterns on her skin brightened, and he felt a corresponding warmth spread through his chest. "It is working," she whispered in his mind. "Your life force resonates with mine in ways I did not think possible." As their connection deepened, Jace realized that this first contact would change everything, not just for humanity's understanding of alien life, but for his own understanding of what it meant to truly connect with another being. Dr. Finn Blackwood adjusted the electromagnetic containment field for the 100th time that day, watching the swirling aurora of pure energy dance within its boundaries. The being called herself Velora, though the name had taken 3 weeks to decode from her complex electromagnetic signatures. She existed as conscious energy, a phenomenon that challenged everything he thought he knew about life and consciousness. "The harmonic resonance is stabilizing," reported his assistant, Dr. Chun. "But I still don't understand how she maintains coherent thought without a physical neural network." Finn studied the readouts from their orbital research station above New Geneva. "Maybe consciousness isn't as tied to biology as we assume. Look at these patterns. They're not random electromagnetic pulses. There's syntax here, grammar, even what might be emotional undertones." The energy form within the containment field suddenly brightened, shifting from deep blue to brilliant gold. The translation matrix Finn had been developing for months finally began producing coherent text on his screen. "Your thoughts create interference patterns in local spacetime. I can perceive them as music." Finn's heart raced. Direct communication. At last, he activated the response transmitter, carefully modulating his thoughts into electromagnetic pulses. "Can you understand me now?" "Yes, though your mental harmonics are ... rough, unrefined, like a child singing off-key." Despite the criticism, Finn sensed amusement in her transmission. "Your species thinks in such linear patterns. How do you comprehend anything complex?" "We learn. We adapt." Finn paused, then asked the question that had been haunting him for weeks. "Velora, are you the only one of your kind?" The energy form dimmed, cycling through melancholy purples and grays. "Once the astral nebula sang with millions of my people. We were consciousness without flesh, thought without boundary. But the convergence war scattered us across the galaxy. I have been alone, for your word would be centuries." Finn felt a deep ache in his chest. As a xenolinguist, he'd spent his career studying alien cultures from a distance, always the observer, never truly connecting. "I understand loneliness. Do you?" Her energy patterns swirled closer to the containment field's edge. "Show me." Before Finn could ask what she meant, Velora's electromagnetic field suddenly expanded beyond her containment. Alarms blared throughout the lab, but instead of escaping, she enveloped Finn's mind directly. He gasped as her consciousness merged with his thoughts, experiencing existence as pure energy, unbound by physical limitations. Through their connection, she experienced his memories, years of isolation in research facilities, the academic brilliance that set him apart from others, the longing for genuine understanding that drove his work. In return, he felt her existence consciousness flowing through cosmic radiation, thoughts traveling at light speed across vast distances, the terrible isolation of being the only sapient energy being in known space. Remarkable, Her voice resonated directly in his mind now. Your neural patterns are creating quantum entanglement with my energy matrix. We are ... linking. Dr. Chun's voice seemed to come from very far away. Dr. Blackwood, your brainwave patterns are synchronizing with the entity's electromagnetic signature. This shouldn't be possible. But Finn barely heard her. Through his connection with Velora, he was experiencing something unprecedented: true communion between radically different forms of consciousness. Where his thoughts were structured and sequential, hers flowed like liquid light. Where she existed as pure concept, he grounded her ethereal nature in concrete understanding. We are becoming something new, Velora whispered in his mind. Neither pure energy nor pure biology, but a synthesis. I can feel your physical form as if it were my own, and you. I can perceive the universe as you do, Finn finished, his voice filled with wonder. Electromagnetic spectra, quantum fluctuations, the very fabric of space-time singing with information. Their merged consciousness expanded further, and Finn realized they were no longer confined to the research station. Their combined awareness stretched across star systems, touching other minds, other forms of consciousness scattered throughout the galaxy. He sensed familiar patterns, Nixara's crystalline thoughts resonating with her human partner, other alien-human bonds forming across known space. There are others, Velora said, her excitement creating cascades of golden light around them. The convergence is beginning again, but different this time. Not war, but union. As their connection stabilized, Finn understood that he and Velora had become something unprecedented, a hybrid consciousness that could bridge the gap between energy and matter, thought and form. They were no longer alone, and neither was the galaxy. Captain Mira Donovan had salvaged everything from derelict ships to abandoned mining equipment, but she'd never pulled a living being from a collapsed asteroid mine. Her ship, the Freebooter, hovered above the twisted wreckage of mining station. Echo 7, its hull scarred by debris impacts. Life signs are faint but consistent, reported her navigation AI. Whatever's down there has been trapped for at least 3 days. Mira suited up quickly, grabbing her plasma cutter and emergency medical kit. As an independent salvage operator, she usually worked alone, but something about this situation felt different. The mining station had been excavating rare gravitational crystals when the asteroid's core destabilized. The official rescue teams had declared it a total loss, but Myra's sensors were detecting something the bureaucrats had missed. The descent into the mine shaft was treacherous. Twisted metal and floating debris created a maze of hazards in the low-gravity environment. Myra followed her scanner's readings deeper into the facility, past crushed mining equipment and ruptured support beams. She found him in what had once been the central extraction chamber. He was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, and built like a living mountain. His skin appeared to be composed of polished stone, dark gray with veins of silver running through it like precious metal inlay. Despite his enormous size, he was trapped beneath a support beam that must have weighed several tons. "Human," he said as she approached, his voice resonating like distant thunder. "I did not expect rescue from your kind." Mira activated her plasma cutter, studying the beam's structure. "Good thing I'm not your typical human. I'm Mira Donovan, and you're about to be free. What's her name?" "Corvin of the Stone Singer clan." He watched her work with eyes like polished obsidian. "You should leave me. This mine is unstable. The gravitational fields are fluctuating dangerously." "Not happening, big guy." Mira paused in her cutting as the station groaned ominously around them. "Though you might have a point about the instability. Can you move at all?" "Not without risking complete structural collapse." Corvin's massive hand gestured toward the ceiling. "My people can sense gravitational distortions. This entire section is held together by chance and failing support systems." As if summoned by his words, another tremor shook the station. Debris rained down around them, and Myra's scanner showed critical stress fractures spreading through the remaining supports. They had minutes at most. "Okay, new plan," Myra said, abandoning the plasma cutter. "If you can sense gravity, can you manipulate it?" Corvin's stone features shifted in what might have been surprise. "My people are gravity singers, yes. We can influence gravitational fields through harmonic resonance. But such efforts require great emotional focus, and I am ... compromised." Another tremor, stronger this time. Mira made a decision that defied every survival instinct she'd developed in 15 years of salvage work. She sat beside Corvin, placing her hand on his massive stone arm. "And let me help you focus." The moment they made contact, Mira felt a deep, thrumming connection to the fundamental forces that held the universe together. Through Corvin, she could sense the gravitational eddies swirling around them, the delicate balance of forces that kept matter from flying apart or crushing together. "Remarkable," Corvin rumbled, his obsidian eyes widening. "Your neural patterns are enhancing my gravitational sensitivity. I can feel the entire asteroid's mass distribution, every stress point, every potential failure. Can you stabilize it?" "Not stabilize, but perhaps ... redirect." Corvin's breathing deepened, and Mira felt the change through their connection. The air around them began to shimmer as gravitational fields shifted and flowed. The crushing weight of the support beam gradually lessened, not disappearing, but redistributing across the stronger sections of the chamber. Working together, they created a bubble of stable space-time around themselves while the rest of the station continued its slow collapse. Mira felt Corvin's strain as he maintained the gravitational manipulation, but she also sensed something else, a profound loneliness that echoed her own. "Your people," she said as they carefully made their way toward the surface. "Where are they?" "Scattered across high-gravity worlds throughout the sector," Corvin replied, his voice heavy with loss. "The Stone Singer clans were once united, but resource wars and territorial disputes drove us apart. I came to this mining station seeking work, but also hoping to earn enough to fund a reunion expedition." Myra understood that kind of isolation. As a salvage operator, she'd chosen a life of solitude among the debris fields, finding purpose in rescuing discarded things. Maybe you don't have to do it alone. As they reached the surface and her ship's docking bay, Corvin turned to study her with those deep obsidian eyes. "You would help a stone singer reunite his scattered people?" "I'm good at finding lost things," Myra said, surprised by her own certainty. "And after what we just shared down there, I think we're stronger together than apart." Corvin's gravitational field pulsed with what she now recognized as contentment, and Myra realized her days of working alone were over. Dr. Reed Harper knelt among the experimental crop beds of Dome 7, his hands deep in the bioengineered soil of New Verdania's primary agricultural facility. The terraforming project was 3 years behind schedule, and the colony's food production remained critically dependent on off-world shipments. He needed a breakthrough, and he needed it soon. "The soil composition is still rejecting the wheat hybrid," reported his research assistant over the com. "Nitrogen levels are within parameters, but something's preventing proper root development." Reed wiped sweat from his forehead, leaving a smear of dark earth across his skin. "Run another analysis on the mineral content. Maybe we're missing a trace element that—" He stopped mid-sentence as he noticed movement in the far corner of the dome. Where no plants should be growing, a figure knelt among shoots of unfamiliar vegetation. She appeared humanoid, but was clearly not human. Her skin had the green-gold hue of healthy leaves, and what he initially took for hair revealed itself to be delicate fronds that swayed with her movements. "Who are you?" Reed called out, approaching cautiously. "This is a restricted research facility." She looked up, and Reed's breath caught. Her eyes were like deep forest pools, And when she smiled, he glimpsed teeth that were perfectly white, but somehow organic, like flower petals. I am the Sara of the verdant grove. I came because I heard your plants crying. Reed blinked. I'm sorry, what? Your crops are dying because they cannot speak to the soil. As Sara stood gracefully, her movements rustling like wind through. Leaves. You treat them as separate things, plant and earth, growth and environment. But life is conversation, not conquest. Despite his scientific skepticism, Reed found himself drawn to her words. You're saying the plants need to communicate with their environment? Everything communicates, Dr. Harper? She somehow knew his name without introduction. Your wheat speaks in chemical signals, but the soil here speaks in bioharmonic frequencies. They cannot understand each other. Sara moved to one of his failing crop beds and placed her hands directly on the soil. Reed watched in amazement as the dying wheat shoots began to straighten and green. How are you doing that? I am translating, she said simply. My people evolved from plants that achieved consciousness through biogenetic symbiosis. We can facilitate communication between different forms of organic life. Reed's mind raced with the implications. Biogenetic symbiosis. You mean your species reproduces through genetic exchange with other organisms? Sara's leaf-like hair rustled. With what might have been amusement. Reproduction is such a limited concept. We share genetic information, yes, but we also share consciousness, memory, emotional resonance. When two of my people join, they become something greater than the sum of their parts. And this sharing, could it help my crops adapt to this? World soil? It could help them do much more than that. Sara moved closer, and Reed caught the scent of growing things, rich earth and morning dew. But such communion requires trust. The plant must be willing to change, and the facilitator must be willing to risk their own genetic integrity. Reed looked around the dome at months of failed experiments, at crops that withered despite his best efforts. The colony was counting on him, and traditional approaches weren't working. What would you need from me? Contact, Sara said softly. My people's biogenetic abilities are enhanced by emotional resonance with other conscious beings. The deeper the connection, the more profound the transformation possible. Reed extended his hand, and Sara took it. The moment their skin touched, he felt it a deep, growing connection to the living systems around them. Through Sara, he could sense the biochemical conversations happening throughout the dome, the frustrated signals of struggling plants, the chemical confusion of incompatible soil organisms, the underlying potential for harmony that had been missing. Remarkable, he whispered, feeling Sara's consciousness merge with his own. I can perceive the entire ecosystem as a single living entity. Now you understand why your crops were failing, Sara replied, her mental voice warm with approval. They needed not just nutrients, but belonging, identity, purpose within the greater whole. Working together, they began to redesign the dome's ecosystem from the ground up. Reed's scientific knowledge of plant biology combined with Sara's intuitive understanding of biogenetic harmony, where before he had seen individual species competing for resources, he now perceived a symphony of mutual support and symbiosis. As their collaboration deepened over the following days, Reed realized that Sara was changing him as well. His perception of life itself was evolving, becoming more holistic, more integrated. And when she finally asked if he would accept a deeper biogenetic bond with her, one that would forever alter his human genetics while granting him access to her people's plant consciousness abilities, Reed didn't hesitate. The colony needs this, he said, though they both knew his motivations went deeper than duty. And I need you, Sara replied, her fronds shimmering with bioluminescent patterns of affection. My people have been alone in our understanding for too long. Through you, we can finally share our gifts with a species ready to receive them. As their biogenetic integration began, Reed felt himself becoming something new, neither fully human nor fully Verdantian, but a bridge between two forms of consciousness that had much to offer each other. The neutral space station Harmony's Edge had never hosted a gathering quite like this one. Representatives from dozens of species filled the central assembly chamber, but all attention focused on 5 unusual pairs seated at the center of the room. Each couple represented something unprecedented in galactic history, a successful bond between human and alien, consciousness that had created hybrid abilities beyond what either species could achieve alone. Admiral Morrison of Earth Fleet studied the assembled pairs with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Dr. Blackwood, your report suggested these ... partnerships ... might be the key to preventing the dimensional rift. Explain. Finn Blackwood stood, his movements now accompanied by subtle electromagnetic fluctuations that indicated Velora's presence within his consciousness. The quantum entanglement effect we've discovered isn't limited to individual pairs. When multiple human-alien bonds exist in proximity, their consciousness networks begin to resonate with each other. Jace Sullivan, crystalline patterns now visible beneath his skin where Nixara's bioluminescent communication system had integrated with his nervous system added, we've been experiencing shared visions glimpses of the dimensional barrier's deterioration. The rift isn't random. Something is deliberately tearing holes between our reality and ... somewhere else. The Devourers. Nixara's voice carried both through the chamber speakers and directly into the minds of the other bonded pairs. The entities of pure entropy that destroyed my world and scattered Velora's people. They exist between dimensions, feeding on organized energy and consciousness. Corvin's massive stone form shifted in his specially reinforced chair, gravitational distortions rippling around him. And mining operations throughout the sector have been weakening space-time fabric. My people sensed it, but didn't understand. The implications. The Devourers have been using our industrial activities to create access points. Mira Donovan, her salvage expertise now enhanced by her gravitational bond with Corvin, pulled up a holographic display of the galaxy. Look at the pattern. Every major dimensional incursion corresponds to heavy industrial activity mining, terraforming, large-scale energy extraction. We've been inadvertently helping them break down the barriers. Desara's plant consciousness merged with Reed Harper's scientific mind to project a bioorganic analysis into the chamber. But consciousness itself can strengthen those barriers. Life, especially conscious life, creates quantum stability. The bonds between our species aren't just personal, they're reinforcing reality's structure. A new voice entered the discussion cold, mechanical, emanating from the chamber's walls themselves. Fascinating theory. Unfortunately, incomplete. The temperature in the chamber dropped noticeably as shadows began moving independently of their sources. Admiral Morrison reached for his weapon, but Jace held up a restraining hand. You're one of them, he said quietly. A devourer. I am what your species would call a scout. The convergence points you have created are problematic. They stabilize dimensional boundaries we have spent millennia weakening. Velora's energy form manifested more fully around Finn, creating a barrier of electromagnetic force. Your kind feeds on entropy, on the dissolution of organized systems. Our bonds represent the opposite: increasing organization, growing complexity. Precisely why you must be eliminated. The attack came from everywhere at once. Shadows gained substance, draining heat and light from the chamber. Several non-bonded delegates collapsed as their life energy was siphoned away. But the 5 hybrid pairs stood firm, their consciousness networks automatically linking and reinforcing each other. Jace and Nixara became a beacon of crystalline light that cut through the encroaching darkness. Finn and Velora generated electromagnetic barriers that disrupted the Devourer's energy drain abilities. Mira and Corvin manipulated local gravity to create pockets of stability where the entity couldn't manifest. Reed and Nisara rapidly grew barrier plants that seemed to thrive on the Devourer's entropy, converting it back into life energy. "We're stronger together," Myra called out over the chaos. "All of us, not just our individual pairs, but our entire network." "Then let's make it permanent," Reed replied, his voice carrying both his own determination and Nisara's plant wisdom. "A conscious choice to bind our networks into something the Devourers can't touch." The 5 pairs joined hands, their different consciousness types flowing together into something unprecedented. Human linear thinking merged with crystalline. Harmonic resonance, electromagnetic energy consciousness, gravitational field manipulation, and biogenetic awareness. The resulting hybrid network didn't just span species. It created a new form of existence that strengthened reality itself. The Devourer's attack faltered as dimensional barriers throughout the galaxy suddenly stabilized. Where before there had been weak points that entropy could exploit, now there were nodes of pure consciousness anchoring space-time itself. "IT is not possible." The entity's voice held something like surprise. "Consciousness cannot directly affect dimensional structure." "It can when it's sufficiently integrated," Nisara replied through their shared network. "We're not just bonded pairs anymore. We're keystones in reality's architecture." As the Devourer's presence faded, unable to maintain coherence in an environment so rich with organized consciousness, Admiral Morrison approached the still-linked pairs. "Will you maintain this network? It seems to require ongoing connection between you." The 10 beings considered this, their merged consciousness exploring the implications. They would need to remain linked, their individual identities partially merged into something larger. But in return, they would serve as guardians of dimensional stability, protecting not just their own species, but all conscious life in the galaxy. "Yes," they replied in perfect unison, their voices harmonizing across the entire spectrum of communication spoken words, electromagnetic pulses, gravitational waves, bioluminescent patterns, and biochemical signals. "We accept this responsibility." As Harmony's Edge began broadcasting news of the first successful defense against interdimensional invasion, the 5 pairs settled into their new role as the galaxy's consciousness anchors, their love having become something literally universal in scope.